What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I'm going to be doing a solo video today, as you can tell. A little bit of an impromptu video that I really wanted to get out. SW and I are still going to be doing our regular show tonight, I believe. So that'll be out probably tomorrow or later this evening, so keep an eye out for that. The reason I wanted to do this video today was because I'm seeing a lot of the statements that are coming out from Trump. If you can't tell by the title, we're going to be talking about the H1-B issue that Trump spoke to Laura Ingraham about on Fox News yesterday. This issue kind of reminded me the reason why I wanted to do a solo video on top of our weekly show. I usually reserve the solo videos for issues that I uniquely kind of care about and that I like to talk about specifically on this channel. The reason I wanted to do this video today on top of our regular weekly episode that we do was because the issue itself kind of reminded me of like why I do this channel, who I'm speaking to, the kind of world that I would love to see in America, basically. So we're going to really get into it here. Suffice it to say, I really haven't felt this level of contempt towards the administration, towards MAGA as a whole, the staunch MAGA supporter crowd. Many of those people are in my family, and I love them, obviously, but um, there is definitely some rot in the MAGA world. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look at what Trump had to say about the H-1B issue. We're going to look at a statement made by Ben Shapiro. We're going to look at some statements made by MAGA influencers. You'll see what I mean here in a second. But so I'm sure if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've seen Trump's statements regarding the H-1B issue, saying that America doesn't have talent, and we'll watch the whole statement here shortly. But like I said, it really reminds me of why I do this. I look at a lot of these MAGA influencers on X who are making millions of dollars sucking up to the Trump admin. Um, they have millions of followers. They get to go to Mar-a-Lago and wear the suit and be goofy and do the little YMCA dance because that never gets old. That's still funny to this day, by the way. That's still hysterical when we go. Yeah, it's very funny as the country burns. Um, it reminded me why I do this. I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm not some, obviously millionaire or some and there's nothing wrong with being a millionaire, but I'm not making money off of being a Trump sycophant or being a MAGA sycophant. And it reminded me why I spend hours a week making videos, editing them, posting them, being on Twitter. It's because aside from people like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson to a lesser extent, and a few other voices on the right, there's absolutely nobody speaking up for the young people in America. And I've looked at the analytics of my channel. It does skew a little bit older than than obviously like Nick Fuentes' channel. Um, my viewer base is mainly 25 years and up, 25 through 54. So it skews Gen Z, like mid Gen Z up through some boomers actually. And I hope, the boomers listening to this, the Gen Xers listening to this really get the message and understand why the young people are so angry and why, frankly, why they're voting for socialists like Mamdani. Um, it just reminded me that the reason I'm doing this is because I want to create a better world, even with my 1,000 subscribers. I want to create a better America. I want there to be a better America. I want to support people that want to create a better America. That's why I'm so supportive of Nick Fuentes and his whole and all of his messaging. Because I actually care what America looks like. I care about the texture, the fabric, the people, the culture, the society that make up America. And as we're seeing in MAGA world, a lot of these people just simply don't care about that. Whether they're too old to understand what we're facing today, whether maybe they're younger and they're on the MAGA payroll, um, maybe they're just stupid, maybe they don't fully understand the issue. Um, but I really have not been filled with this level of contempt for the administration or really like a lot of the right wing as a whole in a long time. Before this video, I was thinking to myself, when was the last time you felt this level of frustration, anger, contempt towards it, like felt this feeling in politics? And the only times I can really think of were maybe in the lead up to the 2016 election when I was like a MAGA sycophant myself. And I would get very frustrated seeing like left-wing late night talk show hosts mimic Trump and make fun of him and make fun of his base. Probably a good example is when maybe some people are too young to remember this, but when Hillary Clinton called Donald Trump supporters a basket of deplorables. That was one of the moments. That was one of my political formation moments, and it made me realize the contempt that the other side had towards half of the country. And I think what the feeling is that I'm feeling right now is I'm seeing that contempt rear its head again, but it's coming from the right wing, and that contempt is being cast at its own voters. And that is what is perplexing to me. And it's frustrating to me. Um, a lot of people may watch this video and say, "Oh, this he's just coming at it from he's just jealous of the H1-B workers that are making money. He's just a lazy kid." I don't know who's saying that, but I'm sure that would be the critique from some of these people that we're going to look at today. Look, I am neither rich nor poor. I am doing fine in life. I'm middle class, but I see that what is in line for the country, and it's not good. Short and sweet, it's not good. Um, I see contempt being expressed towards the people that they should be representing. When I hear Trump say, "We have no talent here. You can't just pull some schmuck off the unemployment line and teach him to make missiles." I'm hearing the same contempt towards his own base that I heard Hillary Clinton express towards the base herself. So again, and we're going to jump into the clips probably right now, but who is sticking up for the middleman, that the absolute middle class guy? The lower class has blacks, it has Hispanics, it has La Raza and AACP. If you're poor, there is no shortage of people that are looking out for you. If you're rich, as we've seen with the Trump admin, there's no shortage of billionaires that are looking out for the elites, for the wealthy class, for Silicon Valley, for Wall Street, for J Street in DC. There's no shortage of anybody standing up for them. But there is a mass shortage of anyone advocating for anybody in the middle. And Trump was supposed to be that champion, and he is not. And like I said, I think there are some well-meaning Trump voters out there, but I think if you're watching this and you are a Trump supporter who wanted, and I don't just mean you voted for him, but you're critical of him. I mean, whatever this guy says, hey, I trust him because he's Trump and he took a bullet for us. So therefore, he always has our best interests at heart. If you're one of those people, I really implore you to listen to what I'm saying in this video, really internalize it, and understand the anger and frustration that is coming from the people in my age cohort, 32 and younger. And, that probably goes up to the 35-year-olds. But I'm very comfortable saying that not many people over the age of 40 really have internalized and understand what we're going to talk about in this video. So let's jump into it. I like making videos that are fun, where we can kind of laugh at like black degeneracy, even though that's not that funny because, we have to live in the cities, but some of those are a little bit more lighthearted. But this kind of stuff fills me with dread because I see what's coming down the pike for the country, and I see that there's really not going to be anyone aside from like a Nick Fuentes type running for president in the future when it's already over. I don't really see anyone coming to save America because this guy was supposed to be the savior. And so yeah, let's just go in. So yeah, Trump did an interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox, and I've actually had my critiques of Laura Ingraham. If you've watched some of the videos on my channel, SW and I did an episode a few months ago called "The War on Young Men," and that was an episode where we analyzed what Tommy Lahren and Laura Ingraham were talking about. And it's a little bit ironic because we'll get into why it's ironic. But Laura Ingraham was saying in the "War on Young White Men" video that we analyzed that the young she basically says young white men, but she says the young men today are lazy and all they want to do is play video games, and that's why the country sucks, and that's why wages are down. Or yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so I was a little surprised that Laura Ingraham pressed Trump this hard in this interview, but good for her. You know, I never, like John Miller said, I never would have thought that Laura Ingraham would be the person that would expose Trump on the H-1B issue. But yeah, I mean, what he has to say here is despicable. So what we'll do is we'll go through. I have a bunch of tabs I want to get into today. So let's get into this. So there's three Trump videos I want to watch, and we'll analyze them all separately and then go into the tabs as we need to. So what we'll do is
There's never going
we'll watch the video first. Let's watch the whole thing, and then we'll break it down and analyze it. So this is Trump yesterday on Laura Ingraham's show, getting interviewed.
to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
and does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands
of
foreign
but
workers.
You also do have to bring in talent.
Well, we have plenty of talented people
no, you
here.
Don't. No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have. You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well, let me
when you and I were
I'll give you an
up.
example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
So let's just start it over. I mean, just a completely disgusting statement. I mean, really think about what he's saying there about the workforce. He's talking about his own voters, by the way. The people that are standing in the unemployment lines, the disenfranchised voters, the people that can't find jobs, the people that ironically have been boxed out by the very labor that he's supporting now, those people voted for him. Now, if you were to poll those people, why do you think they voted for him? Do you think they voted for him because they want the Third Reich to come back? No, maybe like 1% of them. But no, they voted for Trump because they're economically disenfranchised. A lot of Trump's original voters were Obama voters in 2008 and 2012. Trump flipped those counties. He flipped them from blue to red. These people are not ideological Republicans. They wanted somebody who would stand up for them and who would have their back and would advocate for them in the workplace, in the workforce. And what Trump is saying here is kiss my ass, basically. Pardon the language, but he's saying kiss my ass. You've been unemployed for too long because of the systems that I promised to overturn and promised to push back against. You've been unemployed because of that. And that gap in your resume now means we need to bring in 100,000 whoever's. I mean, what, Nigerians, Indians, Chinese? And he talks about the example of the South Koreans making batteries. It's such a non sequitur and it's so dishonest. And it leads me to believe that he, and this isn't even just theory, this is just factual. He's completely been overtaken by his advisors and he's completely siphoned off from the base. The guy isn't even on Twitter anymore. He's on True Social getting his ego stroked by boomers in his comments saying, "Yes, sir, we love you, Mr. President." He's been completely siphoned off from his voters, and you can almost tell that somebody got in his ear and talked to him about, well, sir, if they bring up H1Bs, you got to mention the South Koreans at that one battery factory in Georgia. Okay, here's the thing. We've always had some form of a lottery system for geniuses, basically, for labor that we truly cannot do here. Um, that is what we're talking about with South Koreans building batteries. South Korea, let's bring it back to IQ. South Korea has an average IQ of, I think, around 103, 104. India has an average IQ of 76. I know that nobody believes that because there's this impression that all Indians are geniuses because we've brought over the some of the smartest ones over here. But no, India has an average IQ of 76. The people that we're bringing over are not doing jobs that just can't be done. He's acting like the Indians that come over here are heading the Manhattan Project. No, they're working in data centers. They're doing very basic coding. And not even that, not even the technology sector. We're going to look at the Panda Express example. Bear with me. We're going to look at the Panda Express example in a little bit. They're not even coming over here to do advanced jobs. They're coming over here to work at 7-Elevens and be managers at Panda Express. So for him to sit there and say, "Oh, well, it's actually very complicated because we need those South Korean." Bro, the South Korean that is a very minuscule example. Very minuscule example of what we're talking about. What we're really talking about here is Indian migration and Chinese migration, Asian migration. They are the ones that are undercutting the labor of the people that would be entering into upper middle class jobs out of college. And he's saying that, oh, because a battery factory in Georgia exists, we have to sell our kids' future. Okay, let's re-listen to the clip.
To be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of.
I mean, she's just factually correct. If you want to raise wages, which this administration claims to want to do, I don't really believe them at this point because of what Trump's saying. She's 100% right. It's just basic economics. If you flood the market with, you know, with increased supply, demand goes down. If we increase the market with, you know, people that are making 100,000, let's say, doing jobs that Americans could, in theory, be doing if they were trained to do them, obviously that they're going to take jobs away from Americans who would be having those jobs. It's just like common sense.
But you also do have to bring in talent. When
Well, we
a
have
country
plenty of talented people
no, you
here.
don't. No, you don't.
We don't.
Look at the way, look, just look at this. This is really the kind of stuff that gets me, and it reminds me of how Hillary talked about Trump's voters as deplorables. So Laura Ingraham, I have my suspicions about her, but I mean, she's clearly more Americana, more America first than Trump is in this interview, obviously. And listen to the tone in her voice and listen to the tone in his voice. She says, "Well, we have the talent here. What are you talking about?" She's like almost beaming with pride about our American workers, about people that could be productive here. And look at the dismissive tone that we get from Trump here.
When
Well,
a
we have
country
plenty of talented people
no, you
here.
don't. No,
No,
you
you
don't.
don't.
We don't have talented people.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have talent here. You don't have talent here. Who is this guy? In 2016, Trump was railing against H-1Bs. He was saying that it was hurt. He was saying exactly what I'm saying right now. He was saying that it's hurt, that it's undercutting the job market. It's hurting wages. This is all stuff Trump was saying less than 10 years ago. And now Laura Ingraham sounds more America first than Trump. And it's not just that. It's not just that he disagrees with her on H-1Bs, which he's objectively like wrong about. It's the dismissive tone about American workers. Oh, now these these deplorables, they're just these bumpkins, these hillbillies waiting in unemployment lines. We don't have time for them. What are they supposed to do, Donald? What are they supposed to do, Trump? Just go die? You don't want them to pick. Here's the thing. Well, yeah, let's just go into it. Let's say he's talking about the guy in the unemployment line who's been unemployed for 5 years, right? Trump has already said that he doesn't think American workers will do the hospitality jobs and the agricultural jobs. He doesn't think that they'll pick the grapes. He doesn't think that they'll pick the berries in the fields. But he also doesn't think that they are qualified to do anything above that. So he doesn't think that they're qualified for a job on a manufacturing line that would net them 100,000 a year. He also doesn't think that the person in that unemployment line can go pick the grapes. So what jobs exactly does he think Americans can do? Does he think we should all just go die? Should we all just go die for Israel? Should we just go fight for Iran then? Like it's so disrespectful to his base, man.
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an.
Whose job is it to make them learn, by the way? And I'm not talking about like we need free college. I'm not a socialist. What I'm saying though is whose job is it to maybe, I know this is a groundbreaking concept. Whose job is it to maybe create a jobs program for these kind of things? If you actually gave, just going to watch the language here. If you actually cared about the American worker, you know what you would do? You would create a jobs program. You would reshore manufacturing. You would create a pipeline for people who are either in the late stages of high school you would maybe subsidize some form of trade school. You would do job training, and it's exactly like Laura just said, like what she's going to say right here.
Like an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did
you
we
into...
ever do it before?
Well,
When you and I were
I'll give you
growing
an
up.
example. In Georgia,
So exactly, and I mean, this guy, it's so dishonest. She raises a good point. She says, "Well, how did we ever do it before?" In World War II, we had stay-at-home moms. We had wives and moms who were home alone because their husbands were fighting in Germany or France, and they worked on the assembly lines. They made B-52 bombers. They assembled missiles, bombs, bullets. So what you like, you know, it's like if Trump were president during World War II, would you have imported a million Chinese, a million Indians to build the missiles? Because oh, we can't. Laura, we have moms at home. They can't build missiles. Yeah, actually, you can. America has an average IQ of around 100, probably closer to 110 if you take out a lot of the recent immigrants. Well, maybe not 110, maybe closer to 105 if you take out a lot of the recent immigrants. That means that they can be trained to do these jobs. Above a certain IQ level, you can be trained to do just about any job. So if you have an average IQ in a country of 105, that means you have 50% above 105 and 50% below 105. Um, yeah, the people who have an above 110 IQ absolutely can be trained to work on an assembly line and work on one thing and learn how to make missiles. Yeah, I know that's crazy. I know that your advisors have told you, no, sir, that's not possible. That's impossible for a white guy in Tennessee to learn to make something good. I know that that's an anathema to you, Don, but it's actually possible and we've done it before. It's just so disgusting.
they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made
Hyundai.
batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't
And he
worked in...
keeps going back to that line and just take people off the unemployment line. That is a message fed to him by his advisors, I believe. I'm really building contempt for this face. Because here's the thing, if he were advocating for the American people, I would love this face. I'd be like, that's my president. That's my guy. I love this guy. I don't feel that way anymore. When I hear him talk like this sounds like every other Republican I've seen in my life who talks out of both sides of their mouth. Well, we got to get wages up. We need jobs. But then they import a million foreign immigrants. And you know what? He may be against illegal immigration. Richard Spencer kind of red pilled me on this a little bit. I didn't really agree with it at first, but he's 100% right. Illegal immigration is absolutely much less of a threat to jobs, to the workforce, frankly, social stability than legal immigration is. Because you know how much those legal immigrants are making in their jobs? They're making 100,000 a year. Those are jobs that could be used to elevate the college graduating American class. That could be used to elevate them into the middle class. That's no longer happening because this guy is saying, no, 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 no. They've been in an unemployment line for too long. Yeah, dude, why are they in the unemployment line? Could it be the exact system that you're shilling for put them there in the first place and then they voted for you to fix it? And now you're telling them, oh, that gap in your resume makes you disqualified for the job that we're saying you now can't get. It's really disgusting.
in 5 years,
Right.
and they're going to start making...
All right, so let's go to that was the first one. So let's take a look at this one. This is at every
Look,
what
I
I'm
want to be
trying
able
to
to...
the the bigger theme here that I'm trying to get across is that there is absolutely no care or consideration being given to the American here. Not the American student, not the American worker. not the American economy. Well, I guess the American economy. I mean, in that sense, you're using the word American very loosely because if the American economy is increasingly comprised of Indians and Chinese, what about it makes it, functionally American still? Um, so yeah, what I want to get across here, the theme of this is that across all these videos, there is absolutely no consideration being given for the American economy, or I'm sorry, the American worker or the American student.
Look, I want to be able to get along with the
They're
world.
not the French. They're the Chinese. They spy on us. They steal our intellectual
What, do
property.
you think the French are better? I
Yeah.
mean,
Hold on,
really? I don't know. I'll tell you.
hold on. Let's find the actual clip. There was a better one. Yeah, we may just have to go back to the other one. That's Here we go. Found it.
Sure. Never said.
So listen to how there's just no care given to the American student here. It's unreal. It's unreal. These are the kind of things that I never thought I would hear from Trump. But, here we are, and there's really no other way to say it than he's selling the American worker out.
Universities are getting rich off Chinese money.
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have China and other countries. We also
Listen to the excuses. He's just lying. Like he's just lying because he knows that his base will eat it up and will just never ask questions. He goes, "Well, we've always had a lot of people coming from we have a lot of people coming from China, always have." Well, dude, yeah, okay, let's just say that that's true, that we've always had a lot of people coming from China. Weren't you elected to like fix that? Wasn't a part of your entire thing, a part of your entire campaign, your whole brand was to say China, China. His whole thing was to be anti-China. Now he's saying, well, we've always had people coming from China, so therefore, well, I mean, it's fine. What a fraud,
from
man.
China. We always have
We always have.
China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the
As Nick said last night on his show, it was a great point. When Trump says this,
make some people happy, you would have half the universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy,
when he says if we were to cut that in half, if we were to cut the amount of foreign students that come in annually in half, and says that may make some people happy, he's talking about his base. He's not talking about some, some Democrat or even some fringe right-wing person. That is what he was elected to do. He was elected to decrease foreign immigration. He was elected to increase American wages. And now here we are, 9 years into the Trump saga, and he's saying, "Oh, that might make some people happy." Yeah, dude, you know who it would make happy? The tens of millions of people who voted for you to increase their wages and maybe allow their kids a spot in a good college that's not taken up by a Chinese diplomat or a Chinese billionaire or an Indian who is on an H1-B here or an Indian who's working for some megacorp who can fund, 10,000 H1-B applications. Maybe those people actually wanted to send their kids to college. And he's looking at those parents. He's looking at those parents with college age kids and saying, well, maybe that would make them happy. He doesn't care, man.
you would have half the colleges in the United
So?
States go out of business.
So what?
Well, I think that's a big deal.
That's a good question by Laura Ingraham. She says, "So what?" For all the talk of the free market that these conservatives love to talk about, they love to say, "I'm for the free market. If you can't make it on your own, then you're gonna have to sink or swim and pull yourself up by your bootstraps." And Laura Ingraham correctly goes, "Okay, well, okay, so let's say we do cut the foreign student numbers in half, and let's say some of the colleges do have to close, which is a lie anyway. That's not true. Like Nick said, they would just have to change their business model." Like what kind of business is it if it's totally reliant on like foreign spies and incompetent Patels joining here? Like what kind of business model is that? One, not even true. And two, they want to talk about the free market, sink or swim on your own accord. But when it comes to the colleges, Trump's like, well, no, we have to bring in Chinese because a university might close. What did it's kind of bordering on evil,
They
actually.
fans
You would
of,
have the
fans of the United States.
yeah, but you would have, as you know, historically, black colleges and universities would all be out of business. You would have a system of colleges and universities.
And it's so funny because I don't know that he really believes that. That's just kind of who he's become at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like he's become this like how do I want to phrase it? It's almost like it's almost like that's not something he really believes. That's just like a talking point that's been downloaded into his brain. Like, sir, if they ever try to say that you need to decrease Chinese student numbers, tell them that it would actually hurt the blacks the most. And this is everything with the Republican Party. You had the black economic zones, you got whenever he goes on a speech, we have record low black unemployment, record low Hispanic unemployment, but he's never said the word white once. Like he doesn't care about like white people. So even when we're talking about the universities, the only thing he can talk about in order to defend the universities is to say, "Oh, it might hurt black people." It's like it's Dinesh D'Souzaism.
Universities would
So
go
we're
down the
dependent on
tubes.
China to keep our
No, not
university
China,
system going?
No, yeah, she's right. Like, so we're gonna depend on the Chinese to keep the blacks able to go to school. Like, what are we doing here?
I think it's good to have. I actually think it's good to have outside countries. Look, I want to be able to get along with the
They're
world.
not the French. They're the Chinese. They spy on us. They steal our intellectual
What do
property.
you think the French are better?
Yeah.
I mean, really? I don't know. I'll tell
Universities are getting
What an So yeah, I actually do think the French are a little better than the Chinese. Yeah, I think that when French students come here, they don't try to. There was what was that story out of the University of Michigan? There was a Chinese student here who brought like a bio weapon to try to destroy our crop. Like Chinese spies are all over America. Israeli spies are all over America. Indians are incompetent and like are very bait like L1 tech support. So, yeah, I actually do think that France is a little better than China. I know that they support Palestine, Trump, and that really makes, your advisors angry and that makes Netanyahu mad, which we can never have. But yeah, I actually do think the French are a little better than the Chinese in this regard. Yeah, I know that's crazy. So yeah, I had to take a quick break in recording to attend to my child, so apologies for any change in lighting there. But yeah, let's go on from the French thing that he says that that somehow French students are worse than Chinese students, which is just a ridiculous claim. So we have that one. There's a similar clip to that. I think this one kind of gets all of the clip. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. So let's check out this clip. We'll watch it all first, and then we will kind of pause it and analyze it a little bit.
Look, I want to be able to get along.
French. They're the Chinese. They spy on us. They steal our intellectual property.
What do you think the French are better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really? I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm not so sure. We've had a lot of problems with the French where we get taxed very unfairly on our technology, where, they put 25%.
Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to pause it, but that's just so ridiculous. Like, well, we have a lot of problems with the French. They tax us. Dude, that's not what we're talking about. Chinese are literally spies. And what's funny is that I used to not be kind of like this China hawk. I thought that that was kind of a sign of like neocon thinking. I mean, I'm still not. I don't think that we need to go to war with China, but like we do need to kind of be realistic about the extent to which they are a geopolitical adversary. So the idea that like we're going to get along with China by bringing in 600,000 students, how many students do they allow from the US into China? Like how many do they allow? Obviously they don't, much less involve them in like their military production because obviously we're an adversary, so why would they do that? We're the only ones playing by these rules and it's ridiculous. All right, I'll keep it going.
Taxes on American products. Look, assuming everyone treats us badly, because that's the way I am, but we take in
Assuming
trillions of
assuming everyone treats us badly except for the Indians and the Chinese, they're totally playing up above the board here. They're totally playing fair. They just want a good education, boomer thinking. But yeah, I mean, they don't treat us badly, but the French. It's such outdated boomer thinking.
dollars from students. You know, the students pay more than double when they come in from most foreign countries.
That's great.
I want to see our school system thrive, but at the same time, I want to be, I know you and I disagree. We're
Yeah.
never going to agree on it,
No.
but that's okay. And it's not that I want them, but I view it as a business. We have millions and millions of people. Also, I want to
That's the money line right there. I view it as a business. I mean, that's kind of just the fundamental difference between how he views the country. And like I was saying earlier, that's this whole saga kind of made me think about like why I do a YouTube channel. Why do I, with 1,040 subscribers, like dedicate hours each week to like recording videos? It's because I fundamentally don't view the country as a business. I view the country as a people. Like you don't have America without Americans. And just simply importing Chinese and Indians into America doesn't make them American, excuse me. It's not a groundbreaking idea, but Trump just doesn't there's just a disconnect there, you know. He views it as a business. I don't. I view these as people, as actual people who will not get entry into college. So, he looks at the 600,000 number of Chinese students that are going to be allowed in after making his entire brand. I'm going to go against China. Um, he makes that his entire brand and then welcomes them in with open arms because it's a business. When I see that 600,000 number, I think of 600,000 qualified American students who will not be able to enter college because of that.
get along with countries if possible. You know, people are shocked. Remember, Hillary Clinton said, we'll be in a war. I stopped 8 wars in the last 9 months. I don't want to be in wars.
Why are we talking about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats? And that's the other thing. We'll get to this clip in a second. This is kind of like a unified thing. There's a lot going on here, but you know, I don't know if it's that it's just mental. I don't know if it's just like mental decline. I don't know if it's his age. I don't know if it's that he just can't escape like Reagan era boomer thinking. Um, but this need to just go back to like and the Democrats said I was going to start a new war. Dude, nobody's talking about a war. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about the labor market. We're talking about the universities. We're talking about the ability for a young person who exits college or even exits high school to be on the path for a career that can sustain a family. And he's over here talking about, well, if we don't let in China, then we're going to be in a war. Dude, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's just so ridiculous. What even is this pivot here?
Shocked. Remember, Hillary Clinton said, millions and millions of people. Also, I want to get along with countries if possible. You know, people are shocked. Remember, Hillary Clinton said, we'll be in a war. I stopped 8 wars in the last 9 months.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
don't want to be in war.
I'm so glad for your ego that you stopped 8 wars in the last 9 months. I don't even know what he's talking about there. I don't want to get into the no new wars president thing, but that's a complete misnomer. That's just ridiculous. We're about to go to war with Venezuela. We've already bombed Iran, which is a step that even George Bush wouldn't have taken. We're still involved in Ukraine. Um, so I've stopped all these wars. So what are you saying that if you didn't allow Chinese students to basically artificially prop up our universities that we'd be at war with China? Like what are you even talking about? And it's all at the expense of the American middle class because who's going to become the middle class? It's the people that go to college. It's the people that would be getting those 600 some of those 600,000 spots that we are now just giving off to the Chinese. It's ridiculous. So we have that. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, so let's get to this. So Trump says, well, what should we do next? Yeah, let's get to this really quick. So Trump says that he's really hung up on the Democrat thing because he's like he has a massive ego and he feels personally slighted by the Democrats. So, here's this clip. It's this is one of those clips where it would be fun if he was actually getting done what we needed to be done with him as president. So he runs on basically redelivering the middle class dream. He runs on ensuring that jobs come back to Americans. That was just one of the pillars of what he ran on in 2016. That's not happening, and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it. He has no problems with selling out the middle class, selling out Americans who would be doing these jobs. And instead, what does he spend his time doing in the same interview with Laura Ingraham? So after this interview, I guess they go for a walk around the perimeter of the White House, and they're walking and they're talking.
Now I'm going to show you. So this is the Presidential Walk of Fame.
Now, whose idea was this?
My idea. Everything's my idea.
Everything's your idea. Okay.
Sadly.
Yeah, you're so cool, man. And again, look, I don't it's very tough because I don't hate Trump. I don't hate the guy, but it's just kind of indefensible when nothing that when he's actively selling out his base and kind of just saying, well, they're unemployed and we can't employ them. That stuff matters actually. That is far more important than creating whatever the hell this is, the Walk of Fame. And he says, that's all my idea. It's just, can we get done the things that we need to get done and then maybe we can have playtime?
Who's that guy?
That's Barack Hussein Obama.
Okay.
This is Biden right here.
Wait a second. The
Worst
profile,
president.
the profile of Biden is
So
a
he's the
little-
worst president in the history of our country, and Barack Hussein Obama is top 5, meaning bad.
Are you going to replace that with his actual photo?
No, I don't think so. Look at the faces. And
Like he just thinks he's so funny. And I'm sorry, look, this stuff was funny when he was in the first couple years in office and he would say Barack Hussein Obama. Dude, Obama hasn't been president for over 10 years now, and we're still doing the Hussein Obama thing. And Biden, oh, we're going to put a picture of him, and instead of his picture, it's going to be a picture of the auto pen because the auto pen scandal. And it's like, dude, this would be cute if you were raising the quality of life for middle income Americans. For and it's just kind of funny. Like, look at this. Like, he's just begging for approval from Laura Ingraham. He's like, he's so siphoned off from like reality that he's used to everybody, pardon the language, just kissing his ass all day. That when he tells a joke, it's almost like it doesn't register that somebody isn't laughing. So, like, watch this.
history of our country, and Barack Hussein Obama is top 5, meaning bad.
Are you going to replace that with?
Did you see what I just said, Laura? I said top 5, bad, right? Funny. It's not funny. It's not funny because you just got done in an interview with her talking about how you don't think that Americans have any talents and you don't think that they deserve a spot in the university of their country where their ancestors were born. And you instead think that it's a good idea to import millions at this point of foreign born students and foreign born workers that are going to box them out of the economy that they were born into. A lot of these boomers love to talk about, oh, the sense of entitlement. You're not entitled to a job. That's kind of like a parent, if you're born into your parents' house and your parent says, you don't have a right to the refrigerator, you need to go get a job at 13. It's like, I'm not saying that, once you graduate college, you should be given some $200,000 a year job. Obviously, you should have to work to obtain some semblance of a nice life in America. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't. But, obviously the person who graduates from high school or graduates from college has no ability to impact the economic climate, the jobs climate that they inherit. That the only group, the only institution large enough to handle that is the government. So acting like, oh, these kids feel entitled to a job. They don't feel entitled to a job. That is again boomer thinking that I'm sure Trump agrees with, that he probably falls in line with. They don't feel entitled to a job. They feel entitled to an economic climate that allows them to get a job. Like, would you really call the 18, or I'm sorry, I guess the 22, 23-year-old STEM graduate from I don't know, from a state school even, or like MIT or something, would you, or even something like that, would you really say that they have a sense of entitlement because they expected a job when they got out of high school? I wouldn't say that. I would say that that's a pretty reasonable ask. But meanwhile, you have people like Trump here saying, "No, no, 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 we need to bring in the Indians." I don't see why, and I don't think it makes them entitled to say that that they do deserve precedence in these jobs that frankly, the boomers told them they needed six-figure educations to obtain.
This actual photo?
No, I don't think so. Look at the faces on these people. Those are serious.
It's so tacky too. This gold leafing thing. I don't think it's cute. And look, I'm not like some resistance like MSNBC lib here. I voted for Trump in 16 and 20. I didn't vote in 24. But like I said earlier, this stuff would be permissible. It would be acceptable if we were doing the necessary things. Then we could have all the fun Fox interviews we want and talk about Biden's auto pen. It would still be a little cold, it would still be a little stale, but at least, the American citizens wouldn't be getting boxed out of their own economy. But meanwhile, we have Trump walking along doing the same shtick that he's been doing for 10 years, as he just got done saying 5 minutes before this, we have no talent here. We got to let him in. And he's completely beholden to, big business. And I know that sounds like a Democrat talking point, but it's just true. He's completely beholden to the billionaire class, the Silicon Valley class, Wall Street, J Street, Israel for that matter. Um, yeah, it's very disappointing. And it's disappointing because of what could have been. Trump was not elected to. It's shocking that I even have to say this, and we'll get into the people that are saying this. It's shocking that I even have to say this, but as a matter of fact, Trump was not elected to increase and um, continue the H-1B system, actually. In 2016, he ran against H-1B visas until big labor and big tech got in his ear. I have a feeling it's more big tech, to be honest with you, because those are the billionaire, that is the billionaire class that um, came to his rally in 2024 when he was at his lowest, or I guess 2023 or so, around the DeSantis time. But that timeline, it was them who came to his rally when he was at his lowest. And these people like Elon, Silicon Valley types, they completely subsist off of H-1B labor, and they want the foreign labor class. They don't want to pay Americans an extra 20,000 a year to do the job that Srithram will do for 50,000 a year or whatever, and live in a one-bedroom apartment with six of his homeboys. So yeah, obviously he's beholden to their interests. And I don't even know what argument you can make anymore that this is America first. Like, what is the America first argument for allowing these people into the country? I mean, I guess you could say that it's America first because like it benefits the economy vaguely, but then that just gets into what Trump was saying about viewing America as a business. And that's just a fundamental difference with really it's just a difference in reality. America is not its economy. America is its people. And if you change its people, then you change the country. And that is what we're doing in order to bolster the economy. That's just factual.
Faces, right?
Oh, that's for sure.
Every one of them's a tough cookie. Now I'm going to show you.
Oh, you're so funny. He said, tough cookie. You're so funny, man. All that stuff would be fine if he were getting done what needed to be done, but he's not. And yeah, so let's get to this. So let's get into let's get into Mike Johnson first. So what I was saying earlier was that SW and I did a video a few months ago called "The War on Young White Men," and uh, one of the main sticking points of that video was that what we realized with analyzing some of these Tommy Lahren videos, ironically, Tommy Lahren's interview with Laura Ingraham, excuse me, her interview with Laura Ingraham, one of Mike Johnson's interviews, it's exactly what he's going to say here. What we noticed with a lot of those interviews is it sounds like they're trying to use the middle class, the young, not the middle class. Let me rephrase that. The younger white working class who is either in college or about to exit college, they are trying to use them as a scapegoat for future austerity measures. So what they're trying to do, and we'll watch this clip, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that the reason, for example, Medicaid, like Mike Johnson will talk about here in a second, they're trying to say that the reason Medicaid is bankrupt is not because we've poorly managed our finances or even because a lot of black people take a lot of Medicaid fraudulently and stuff like that. They're trying to say that Medicaid is bankrupt because lazy white guys or lazy men who play video games all day won't get a job. Tell me what job these people are supposed to get within compare what Trump just said and then juxtapose that to what next to what Mike Johnson is about to say right here. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Let's juxtapose those two. So keep in mind, just a few minutes ago, Trump was saying, "Oh, they can't get jobs. They've been unemployed in a system that they got unemployed because they were boxed out by the system that Trump said he would overturn and would work to completely like abolish. Basically, they're unemployed because of that, but because they got unemployed by that, they're now unemployable because they were unemployed. Great. And then you have people like Mike Johnson saying this just a few months ago.
Would also remove a very reasonable and modest work requirement that we put on able-bodied young men with no dependents. As we've said, they should not be riding the wagon and taking Medicaid that is intended for vulnerable populations, the elderly, disabled, and young pregnant women, for example, and not young able-bodied men without dependents who are playing video games. We put that into the law because it's common sense.
She liked that. She smiled at that because it's young men that are getting scapegoated for the fact that they've mismanaged their money and have allowed millions of illegals into the country that are siphoning off of Medicaid. But do you hear any mention of illegals or black people? No. And you also have to read into it a little bit. When these people are talking about playing video games, they're talking about young white men. I'm sure there are some black gamers who watch this channel. I'm sure there's some Hispanic gamers who watch this channel, maybe even some female gamers. Doubt it. What they're talking about is white men there, and they're trying to scapegoat young white men for the fact that they have made poor financial decisions in the country. So what they're saying is, these young white men are sitting at home ordering DoorDash. That's what Tommy Lahren said, ordering DoorDash, playing video games. Gee, I wonder why they wouldn't have a job. Why wouldn't those young men have a job, Mike Johnson? Could it have anything to do with the fact that Trump said we're going to allow pay, essentially unlimited H1Bs? I mean that will probably come in the future, unlimited. Um, could it have anything to do with that? Why are they unemployed? Do they just hate the concept of making money? Do they like living in their mom's basement, as you say? I don't think they like living there. I think the situation has dictated that they have to be there. The economic situation has dictated that that's the only place they can be, basically. So, yeah, you have people like this saying that it's just pure laziness. That's the reason why. And it's just a grab bag at this point. What you have to realize is that there's nothing consistent here. Sometimes the argument for importing foreign labor will be that our work class is lazy. Sometimes the reasoning for importing foreign labor will be that we have a bad education system and our kids are all stupid and can't read, and the Indians are actually way smarter than us, and that's why we need them to work at 7-Eleven and hand you Cheetos from behind the counter and pump your gas. Sometimes it's that argument. Sometimes it's, well, this is another one you'll get sometimes. Sometimes it's because the birth rates are too low. That's another common one, and it's so disingenuous. Who said that? Joel Berry from Babylon B said that. He said, "Well, the reason we need all these H1Bs is because we only have a replacement rate of 1.6 and we abort 600,000 babies per year." That is a complete obfuscation from the actual issue. That would be like saying we need to import foreign labor because we have all these gang shootings and we too many black people are dying at the hands of the gangs. So we need to bring in Indians to do your job. One has nothing to do with the other, but what you realize is that there's nothing coherent or consistent. It's just a grab bag of reasons. So let's get into one of those reasons, and this is one that Dinesh D'Souza seems to be very hung up on. I do like this post from Gary. This I follow him. Follow me back, man, if you're watching this. This is exactly how I feel. He says enough about Trump's comment about "Oh, this is Barack Hussein Obama. He was very bad." Gary says, enough of this stuff, man. You can get away with this when you're not saying we need H1-B and 600,000 Chinese. Exactly right. It's exactly what I said. You can do all this stuff when you fix the job market, when you fix wages, but there's no desire to do that. He would rather walk around the lawn, play big cheese, and you know have his ass kissed by people. Basically, I mean, kudos to Laura Ingraham for holding a candle to holding him accountable to some of what he was saying, but I don't see that kind of pushback coming from most people. So one of the arguments that you hear from people is that our education system is horrible, and that's why we actually need the foreign labor. So let's go here. Yeah, that's a very common one. You'll hear that a lot from it's actually very specific to Indians. Vivek does this all the time. Vivek Ramaswamy does this very frequently. Dinesh D'Souza does this a lot, where they say that the reason we need foreign labor is because our basically Americans are so stupid that they can't do any of the jobs that are necessary today. So this is always a good retort, and they never have any answer for this. I posted this in Dinesh D'Souza's comments before. I'll zoom in on this a little bit, but these are the 2022 PISA performance with America split by race. So this is it's an exam that comes out every year. It tests, I think, high school seniors for their basic knowledge. It tracks where the world is at basically with regard to um, I think 18-year-olds or whatever the equivalent to senior in college would be. So a very common thing that they say is Americans are just stupid, and that's why we need Indians. All right, well, let's look at what the PISA scores have to say, because these are the people that would be entering into college, into our elite universities, into our elite institutions. Can I zoom in? No, I can't. Okay, anyway. All right, so you could just clearly see who's at the top of this. At the very top, it's US Asians. So the reason for that is because we import that there's a selection bias there. Like I said earlier, India has an average IQ of I think 76.2. So the problem with a lot of this, especially legal migration, is that people get a very skewed view of what countries are competent and have competent people. So if you talk to your average person, especially boomers out there, they think that Indians are like the smartest people on the face of the planet. They think that they because they because they answer like tech support calls, they think that they are like the epitome of genius. But what's happening is that we're importing the smartest Indians from the world, so it gives us a very skewed view of of what their abilities are. So U.S. Asians, great job. You guys are at the top of PISA. Next, you have Singapore, Macau, which is in China. You have Taiwan, Japan, and then one, two, three, four, five, six from the top. You have U.S. whites. That does not fall in line at all with what Vivek and Dinesh D'Souza have to say about American students. We are told that American students are lazy, they're stupid, they can't even read. Um, I'll go to Dinesh's actual tweet here in a second. But US whites score sixth out of all these countries. So score better than Korea, Hong Kong, Estonia, Canada, Ireland, US of two or more races next. Switzerland, Australia, Finland, New Zealand, UK, Poland. Then you have United States as a whole. And the thing is that United States bar, the one that doesn't account for any race, it's just the United States lump score. That score, and I hate to say it, but that score is being dragged down significantly by US blacks and US Hispanics. Now, obviously, they're Americans. I guess most of the Hispanics are. I don't know how they're testing illegals here. But if you were to eliminate blacks and Hispanics from this, the United States as a whole would be much, much closer to Hong Kong. And you know what country you don't see on the PISA list? India. You know why? They stopped participating in PISA around 2009. They participated 1 year, and all of their scores lumped much closer to Africa in the bottom fourth quadrant of this chart. So that is complete big labor BS talking points. Those are complete BS talking points to say that the reason that we need the labor is because American kids are just stupid. That's not true. That's just not true at all. US whites are in the top 6 in the PISA scores. US Asians do perform well, but that's because we're selecting heavily for the most intelligent. US whites do great. Go to your average suburb. And what people like to think of, and this is a very boomer conservative thing, they like to think of like every education, every high school in America being like what they see on PragerU videos with blue-haired feminists screaming at the professor for not using their pronouns. That is not what's happening in suburban high schools that are primarily white. That is not what's happening. They are intelligent. These are the people that made America the greatest country in the history of the world, in my opinion. These are the people, these are Americana, these are the people that built the B-52 bomber. These are the people that, led the Manhattan Project. These are the people that put us on the moon. Even with something like the Manhattan Project, I could see somebody retorting and being like, well, we used Jewish immigrants for that. That's great. I never once said that we can't import geniuses to this country. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is when I go to a 7-Eleven and there is a guy named Srithram, and he's here clearly not because he was born here, but because he's here on an H-1B visa. Why do we need him here? There's all these jobs that H-1B visas are doing that do not need to be done by them. And then you realize that it's really just an excuse of big labor to have them here so they can basically undermine the costs of labor. The people that are coming here on H-1Bs will do labor for significantly cheaper, and they will do them in worse conditions and require less benefits than American workers. That just is what it is. And me posting this was in response to, hold on one sec, where was it? There we go. This was in response to Dinesh D'Souza. And I mean, he has just completely shown his cards over the last couple weeks, really ever since the Nick and Tucker interview came out. He said, many people, our education system sucks. It's all indoctrination, no real learning. Standards have plummeted. The same people. Is Trump seriously saying our graduates are not the best in the world and can do any job you think of? Let's at least get our story straight. Yeah, dude, actually, they can do any job. Americans can do any job you can think of. Yes, I do believe that. As I've shown here, white Americans test incredibly well in PISA. Their scores are great. It's largely U.S. blacks that are dragging the scores down, and that is not most high schools. Um, and what you get from people like Dinesh is just this kind of thinly veiled. I mean, for all of his years of saying that he is he doesn't see race and we need to see beyond race, and that it's all ideological, and that anybody can become an American. He gets very defensive when he start attacking Indians for some reason. Maybe it's because race is real. Yeah, he just has a total problem with even being honest about the fact that like US, maybe he doesn't know this, but I have a feeling he does. He can't be honest about the fact that US whites are pretty spectacular, man. Um, we won World War II, for better or for worse. Won World War II with white labor and some black labor, basically. We didn't need H-1Bs to get on the moon. We didn't need you, Dinesh. We didn't need you to immigrate here. America was just fine before we got these waves of immigration. And it's so offensive because you can tell he has disdain for these Americans. So, so on one level you have Trump saying that Americans cannot do these jobs. And then on another level, you have Shapiro saying this.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here.
This got a lot of traction the other day. I kind of think for all the wrong reasons. I think you really have to look at this in conjunction with everything we've been looking at because this statement on its own isn't terrible. I see what he's getting at, but when you look at it in conjunction with everything we've talked about, it is pretty terrible. So listen to what Ben Shapiro has to say here.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities. If you're
It's so offensive because the reason it's so offensive is because, like I said, on one level, you have Trump telling us that if you've been unemployed and you've been boxed out by the economy that he's now pushing, you can't get a job. And then you have Shapiro saying, and if you can't get a job, then you need to leave your city, you need to leave the place where your parents lived, you need to leave the place where your grandparents are buried. You should just go. But like what is it? What's the alternative? Because the jobs that would make it economically feasible for people to live in these cities are becoming eradicated. They're becoming unable for Americans to get, basically. Um, and big shocker, Ben Shapiro came out in favor of what Trump said last night. Today, we can maybe look at that if we have time. But he came out in favor of what Trump said about H1B. So you're telling these young people at the same time, you're telling them, one, you need to get the hell out of the city where you're from, where you were born and raised. Funny enough, that doesn't work for Shapiro. He gets to immigrate here and lives a great life, but if anything goes horribly, he doesn't have to worry about figuring it out as a pioneer on the frontier. He goes back to Israel where he has a great life. Funny how that works. Um, but he gets to tell all these Americans, well, if you can't afford it, you should just move. Okay, well, what would they need to do in order to be able to afford it, Ben? They would need to get a good job, right? Get a good job. Okay. Well, Trump just said that if you're graduating from college, you may not have those jobs because he's allowing 600,000 Chinese students into the university who are now competing for you with those jobs. And we're allowing unlimited H1Bs into the country, which are also competing for you in those jobs. So, where exactly does it work out for the American here? What good deal do they have? At the lowest level, you're telling them they can't pick the grapes and the berries because they're lazy or something. They will do it, but they're lazy, but they're just lazy. Americans won't do agricultural work anymore, and they won't do construction either. That was actually how a lot of black people in the 70s and 80s, at least according to my dad, I wasn't alive back then. That's how a lot of black people got a foothold into the middle class was they did blue collar work, construction, agriculture, those kind of jobs. Okay, well now that I mean, even black people don't really have an entry into the middle class anymore, at least in blue collar work. So on the lower end, you're telling blue collar Americans you cannot do the grape picking anymore because you're stupid and lazy. And then on the highest end, you're telling them they can't do the tech jobs because they're stupid and lazy also. So then where does that exactly leave Americans in the middle, right? That's a good question. This was a debate that was had just a few months ago on Twitter. Chris Rufo, he got lambasted for this tweet. Thank, thank God he did. Somebody said, people keep telling, oh, okay, this is good. Somebody told Chris Rufo, people keep telling me the economy is strong, but every time I look at the news, I see layoffs and businesses closing. Personally, I'm doing just fine, but I can see with my own eyes that something is fucked. Not sure what to believe here. And Chris Rufo says, this is basically full employment. The Panda Express near my house is offering 70,000 a year plus benefits for the new assistant manager. You can make 100,000 a year working at Chipotle for a few years and working up to store manager. So, economics aside, we're going to get into that on the next tweet. Economics aside, they're basically telling Americans to go work at a fast food restaurant and die, basically. Go work at a fast food restaurant and die. Don't hold any positions of power. You're not entitled to anything. But what you are entitled to do is work at a McDonald's and flip burgers for 5 years. And then maybe you can become a manager. And then maybe you can go live in Duluth, Minnesota, or Dubuque, Iowa, or Lincoln, Nebraska. And then maybe you can Like, I don't even know what you think. Like, they should just die and they should wait their turn and die until the Indians come in and take even more of their jobs. And, it's so funny because people like Christopher Rufo and Ben Shapiro will lament the fact that young people are voting for socialists now. I wonder why. I wonder why they're voting for socialists. And I'm not personally sympathetic to the socialist cause. I don't that's just not my ideology. I don't believe in that. But I'm also not surprised that young people are flocking to that ideology when this is what they're offering them. This is what people like Chris Rufo and Ben Shapiro have to offer. Oh, it didn't work out in Dallas or LA or New York City because they flooded the job market, they flooded the tech industry with H1Bs. Well, you could go move to Topeka, Kansas, and work at Panda. Great advice. I wonder why nobody's watching your podcast, Chris Rufo. I wonder why people are voting for Mamdani Ben Shapiro. And this account that I like pointed out very, very well pointed out. So what do we do once all the Panda Express jobs get H1B'd? So somebody pulled up the you could actually go to one of the government sites that tracks H1B labor, um, and look at how many people each employer is bringing in on H1B visas. Oh, what do we have here? Panda Express. And Panda Express has dozens of these on the website. Panda Express Inc., area coach of operation and training. And at first, what I was thinking was when he posted this, oh, well, not that it makes it much better, but I was thinking, oh, these are probably just corporate jobs. And I was like, no, surely they're not importing H1B labor to do restaurant jobs or maybe even like a step above that, like a district manager or a training coach. Nope. Nope, it's not that they're importing H-1B labor to do data entry at the Panda Express office, wherever Panda Express is based. Actually, that's a good question. Where is Panda? Panda Express is based in Glendale. Oh no, let's look at this really quick. Rosemead, California. So okay, so perfect. That's where their corporate office is, right? So you would think if they were just importing H-1B labor to, I don't know, run their payroll system or do coding for their app. I don't even that's not defensible, but you would expect to see location in this column to just be Rosemead, California, if that were the case. You do see two of those. You see, or no, not even two, just one. Yeah, just one. That's Roseville. So yeah, Rosemead, the only job that they're importing H-1Bs for is a senior compensation data analyst, which is what I was saying. So yeah, you would say, well, maybe they're just importing them to do tech, which wouldn't be defensible, but maybe that's what you think the norm is. No, 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 no. They're importing H-1Bs to do store level work. An area coach, that's a $91,000 a year job. Area coach, 116,000. Area coach, Rhode Island. A manager of Panda Express. So what are you're telling me that Americans are too stupid to do manager at Panda Express now, which is what you would have to argue if you were these Ben Shapiro types. So these Ben Shapiro types would tell you, well, if you can't afford to live in New York, why don't you just go work at a Panda Express and become a manager? Okay. Oh, I applied for manager and they filled that in Yonkers, New York. I forgot we needed people from Bangalore to become managers. Then we have the senior compensation data analyst in Rosemead. And then from here, we just have training leader, which is literally, if you've never worked in retail, that's just somebody who they specialize in teaching people how to do things. Like they work in a district and they travel from store to store and specialize in training. You're telling me that there are no training leaders in American training leaders that want to make $89,000 a year in Michigan, or there are no Seaside, California. I'm sure that's a nice place to live. You're telling me there are no training leaders, no American training leaders who want to make 91,000 a year? No. Of course there are. Of course there are. And that's what's so dishonest about it all. It's really disgusting. And then somebody retweeted the image that I used. It said, of all the fake news, the criticism of American education is the fakest. Asian Americans have taken the top spot in international PISA rankings, with white Americans not too far behind. India, on the other hand, dropped out of this ranking after a singular humiliating performance. And like I said, they they ranked right around where Africa does when they did it the one time. So we have Trump there. We're going to get to the sycophants here in a sec. There was one other thing that I wanted to take a look at. So somebody said, as I walk into the shady gas station and request a can of Zen 6 Wintergreen, I'm reminded that Akshit is actually more qualified to grab it off the counter and ring it up than anyone else in America. And that's exactly it. Like that's what the most offensive part is. It's the idea that Americans aren't qualified for literally any job. And that is what they're telling you. Just in not so many words. And it's going to come piecemeal. It's you can't pick the grapes, but you also can't build the houses, but you also can't assemble the missiles, but you also can't help out at the Tesla factory, but you're also unqualified and you're too stupid and lazy to become a manager at Panda Express. So we have to bring in Nepalese and Indians. It's so dishonest, man. And this is the tweet I was talking about from Joel Berry. He says, bitter pill. Mass migration to H1B will never end as long as there's market demand for it. Well, there's your problem, market demand. I don't live and die by the market. I don't think that what the market demands is necessarily the most moral thing. And I guess we'll jump into it. What I really can't stand is more than anything the sycophants. Because, you know, you could almost not, I do blame Trump, but you could almost kind of let him off the hook a little bit if it were just him thinking that, but his base pushed back, like these boomer types like Bill Mitchell actually pushed back and said, "Sir, this is not the right messaging. No, 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 sir, you got it wrong on this one. We need to advocate for Americans." But what are we going to get instead? And this is really where most of my contempt lies. People like Bill Mitchell, he is Boomer 101. He says, let me bottom line this. Trump is our president. Okay, first of all, who was our? Who was our? Because I don't feel represented by Trump. Do I have a decent job? Yes. Do I have a reasonably nice life? Yes. But when I look around and I look at the things Trump is saying, and I look at the fact that, where I live in Dallas, a lot of these suburbs are unrecognizable just in like a 6 or 7 year span. I don't feel like Trump is speaking for me. I feel like he's speaking for boomers and big business. He says, if you are attacking him on X today over H1Bs, you are working for the enemy. I'm sure the Democrats are enjoying the hell out of your posts. And that's what it's always going to be, isn't it? That's part of why that's part of why I think in a lot of ways MAGA has actually been detrimental to the country. And it's not because I remember when I first started following, like really getting into politics in like 2015 and 2016, I remember liberals, like libtards, you know what I mean? Like that, the type. I remember libtards saying the reason that Trump is a threat is because his rhetoric is out of control and he's undermining our institutions. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about when I say Trump has been a net negative and has been harmful is that what's going to happen now that Trump is pro H1Bs is that you're going to get a circling of the wagons from about 50% of his base. 50% of his base is going to say, well, Trump said he likes H1Bs, so therefore it's a good thing. Hey, 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 I don't criticize Trump. He took a bullet in the ear for me, so therefore I go with anything he says. Whatever he says, when Trump says jump, I say, how high, sir? I say, sir, yes, sir. How high do I jump? And what's going to happen is they're going to associate being pro H1B with being with a right wing position. So what you're going to get in the future, and we'll go back to sharing the screen because this is interesting. What you're going to get in the future, you're already seeing this from people like Bill Mitchell, one of Trump's biggest sycophants. He says, I'm sure the Democrats are enjoying the hell out of your posts. As if as if the worst thing, not, the worst thing in the world is not hurting the future prospects of young Americans. It's not hurting the wages of young Americans. It's not hurting birth rates because what happens when people don't get jobs? They don't get married. They don't have kids. It's not hurting birth rates. No, no, no. The worst thing you can be is a Democrat, is a demon crap. It's so out of touch. And here's what's going to happen. I saw this article. I was looking for some content today. So what's going to happen with people like Bill Mitchell is you're already seeing it. They're saying that if you criticize H1Bs, you're a Democrat, and Trump likes H1Bs. And you know who doesn't like H1Bs? This is an article from Breitbart from September 25th. Senator Dick Durbin, months from retirement, becomes first Democrat to criticize H-1B visa program. That's a good development. But what is your and we'll look at the article a little bit, I guess. He says, "Oh, this is actually a great letter," and it's so annoying because the Democrats can say something reasonable. What the statement that we're about to read is completely reasonable from the Democrats or from Dick Durbin, one of the leading Senate Democrats. Completely reasonable statement. But instead of people saying, you know what, the Democrats are right. The Republicans need to adopt their messaging and start to advocate for the workers of the United States. They're going to say, no, 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 no. Trump loves H-1Bs. Therefore, it's right wing to love H-1Bs, and it's actually a far left position to criticize H-1Bs. This is a Chuck Grassley, Republican, cool. But Dick Durbin, he led this. He said, with all the homegrown American talent relegated to the sidelines, we find it hard to believe that you cannot find qualified American tech workers to fill these positions allocated by the H-1B lottery program, said the September 25th letter signed by Chuck Grassley and Dick Durbin. In evaluating the high unemployment rate for American tech workers, we cannot ignore the massive ongoing layoffs ordered by you, Trump, and your peers in big tech C suites over the past few years. At the same time, you have been laying off your employees, you have been filing H-1B visa petitions for thousands of foreign workers. That's a great statement. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to look at that and say, oh, well, the Democrats want you to be against lowering your wages? You know what? If that makes me a Democrat, I don't care. I don't care because Trump is not earning my support. What do I tell my kid? My kid is very young right now, but what do I tell my kid when she's going to college and wants to get a job or something afterward, let's say? What do I tell her? Well, you can't support the people who want to increase your wages because that's a Democrat talking point. Dude, I don't care if that's a independent party talking point. That is a common sense talking point. It's so offensive. It's so offensive. And that's really kind of the black pill on this is that, like I said at the beginning of the video, I do have a lot of family that's very pro MAGA, and I would call them MAGA sycophants, to be honest with you. But it's kind of this inability to ever escape MAGA. Like if Trump says something, it's law. If Trump says the sky is orange, well, it was orange one day last year, so he's really not lying. The moon's made of cheese. Well, I mean, we put an astronaut on the moon and they never said it's not made of cheese, so it could be that they will take whatever slop Trump feeds them. It could directly hurt them, and they will eat the slop. I hope I'm wrong about that. I truly hope I'm wrong about that, but I do not see that trend breaking at all. This is a perfect example, and this is somebody, Red Eagle Politics. I hope he comes around. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's done some good work, but he's just completely wrong, and he's representative of the kind of person that I'm talking about. So he quote tweeted the Trump video, and he said, Laura is 100%. And this is kind of what I'm talking about with a lot of these Republican right wing influencers. Their entire brand is being pro Trump. I mean, look at him. This guy says America first. In what way is this America first? What is America first about what Trump has said here? What about that is America first? Nothing. And he's Trump 2024. That's great, man. That's great. Laura's 100% right about Trump needing to cut visas, and I'm glad she pushed him on it. Oh, so he's glad she pushed him on it. And then he says, And Trump's example of Hyundai battery trainers is also a valid example of temporary work visas that make sense, although it has nothing to do with H-1Bs. We have to talk to each other. We can't talk past each other. That goes for both sides. Trump should severely cut H-1B visas and work visas. But nowhere in this clip is Trump shilling for H-1B visas either. Trump literally said, we don't have the talent here, dude. Red Eagle politics, what are you talking about? I know that your brand is being, Mr. Pro Trump, and you probably make some money off of this. You really can't, break from your brand at all. But in what world is he not shilling H-1B visas here? When Trump looks you in the eye and says, "We don't have talent here, bro," you're saying, "Oh, no, 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 but I know you didn't mean H-1B, sir." This is the kind of slavish mentality that I'm talking about. And frankly, at this point, I'm sick of giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. Um, it's been 10 years that we've been on this roller coaster with Trump. We're in year 10 right now. Since he came down the golden escalator, we're in year 10, and we are still saying, well, dude, he didn't quite mean it that way. Oh, dude, well, I'm sure any minute now the deportations will start, the mass deportations that he promised. I'm sure at any minute now he's going to really cut down on those H-1Bs. Dude, he doesn't care. He is at Mar-a-Lago throwing parties, getting his ass kissed, and having people tell him he's the funniest man of all time, and that's what he cares about. His real self showed in that in the part where him and Laura Ingraham were walking along the alleyway or the sidewalk or whatever in the White House looking at the presidential portraits. He cares about making people laugh. He cares about being liked. He cares about being able to say, "I've stopped 8 wars." No, you haven't. That's a lie. And but he doesn't care enough to try to make life better for the average American because you know what would make life better for the average American? Cutting back on H-1B visas. Something like 30%, 30 or 40% of graduates who graduated with a bachelor's in 2025 are still unemployed. And he's going to go out there and say, well, we have no talent. There's no talent here. I'm just sick of it, man. And I really hope that anybody watching this video who's still on the MAGA train and is still like, he's fighting for me out there. He's not fighting for you, man. Now, that's not a call to go be a socialist. That's not a call to go support Mamdani or something. That is a call, like Nick has said, to take your own side, to hold them accountable, to withhold your vote, and not just slavishly say, well, I guess I got to do it because the left could be worse. Based on what we looked at, it looks like the Democrats might come out more strongly opposed to H-1Bs than the Republicans will. I mean, what do you want me to do about that? Am I the negative guy for sitting here saying Trump said we don't have talent here? And you can play semantics all you want. He didn't say we don't have talent here. He was saying that the certain kind of talent. Shut up. I'm so sick of these equivocations. These people are doing backflips and mental gymnastics to try to cover Trump when he doesn't know your name. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about if his voters have if his voters in the unemployment line that he so disparagingly said, "Oh, they're in the unemployment line. They don't know anything." I thought those are the people you were fighting for. I thought that's who it was, not Silicon Valley, not Wall Street, dude. So it's very disappointing. I hope people come around. I don't think I'll put it this way. I don't think most of his base over the age of 40 will come around because and I'm sure if you're younger than 40, you've talked to people in this boat. But the second you try to criticize something Trump said, you see the mental gymnastics turning. You can even tell them, well, in 2016 he didn't support H-1Bs and he does now. So what do you think accounts for that change of heart? They'll say, well, he he just he just knows what we need now. He just knows what we need now. It's so ridiculous. It's so slavish. And I'm glad to see that a lot of people it's really the under 30 crowd that's changing the dynamic here on Israel and Palestine, on the H1B thing. Um, Nobody I talk to under the age of 30 is supportive of having endless waves of Indians and Chinese here because they're actually subjugated to the effects. They're subject to the effects of the economy that the boomers are just unleashing upon us. So the under 30 crowd needs to stay vocal. Um, I'm not saying, oh, well, we can change his mind. We just got to keep pushing. No, it's over. He doesn't care. He's not going to cut back on H1Bs. He's going to increase Chinese labor, but in the same breath say we need to push back against China, but we also need 600,000 of their students to come spy on us. So I'm totally done. If I wasn't done already, I'm totally done. I'm not trying to be negative, but people do need to start to kind of look for what the next thing is because MAGA has not been a net positive for the right. And I'm sorry to say that, but it hasn't. And it is what it is. Trump made this bed. We didn't. We voted for him. I did at least 2 out of the 3 times. He made this bed. I didn't. So on that note, I'm probably going to wrap up here. SW and I are going to be doing an episode tomorrow. I hope you enjoy. Keep an eye out for that. And just be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Have a great night. Thanks.